What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey episode number 135, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of your upcoming 2024 NHL Draft. My name is Vinny Parisi, and I am super stoked to be here today. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he has no clue who his favorite team is going to pick second overall because nobody actually knows. Frank, how you doing?
Doing good. I'm looking forward to it. We got a big weekend ahead of us for the NHL, and I'm all for it. I look forward to this moment every year, especially from the perspective of a Blackhawks fan who's been struggling lately. So this is kind of the bright spot of the season.
For sure. Chicago picked first last season. They're picked second this season. You know, there's another team out there, Frank, that picked second and first in back-to-back seasons. Who might I be talking about?
I wouldn't know.
You would know. They just won the Stanley Cup. It's the Florida Panthers. Frank, I think it's time we celebrate the Stanley Cup champions in style. We're going to do that in period number one. There's nobody I'd rather talk to about the Florida Panthers than from our very own National Hockey Now, Florida Hockey Now, George Richards. George, welcome to our program.
Hi, everybody. What's up?
It's very nice to meet you. It's very nice to have you on the show. You do great work for Florida Hockey Now. I'm a big fan. I've been, every time I write a daily, I link Florida Hockey Now because I've been just so thrilled with the coverage that you've done throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs and leading into the Stanley Cup final. I got to ask you right off the bat. Florida Panthers, Stanley Cup champions, as a professional, as a fan, what does it mean to you?
Well, I'm not a fan. I mean, I've been covering this team for, 20 years. But let me tell you, to see all the people that you worked with over the years, especially with this organization that, we remember the days when there were literally 5,000 people in that 20,000 seat arena, and they were giving away tickets, stacks of tickets at the sandwich shop across the street from the arena. We all remember that and how tough it was. And the constant relocation, not rumors, but, that's what would always, hey, just move them already. Just get them, all that. To see those folks out there, that was what was cool, getting to see, all your friends smile. They're going to get rings. They're going to have a great time with this. And for the long-suffering fans of the Florida Panthers, because, people joke about it, but Florida Panthers have a lot of diehard fans down here who stuck with this team through thick and thin, and for them it was great to see, because now everything they went through is legitimized. Florida Panthers honestly are one of the top organizations now in the National Hockey League, and this only puts that cherry on top. And let's not forget, they were up 3-0 in this series. Had they lost Monday night, that's probably something this organization doesn't come out from under for 20, 25 years. I mean, that would have been, every time you talk about the Florida Panthers, until they won it, you'd be talking about that. So to see that relief, that joy, that all of that come together, was a heck of a night.
I can't imagine being there when the Stanley Cup's awarded. That's a dream of mine. And to see a team that you follow do that while you're in that building had to just be a sensational feeling. What was the atmosphere like inside that building?
It was
from
crazy.
Your point of view.
Yeah, we didn't get to see. We saw the cup get awarded like y'all did on television, because they don't let you on the ice unless you're a rights holder. So we were penned up underneath the arena. Gave us extra time to work because we knew it'd be, half hour or whatever. But anyway, I've only gotten to see a lot of it since yesterday and today. Honestly, we didn't get to hear what Paul Maurice said. We didn't get to hear what Sasha Barkov, said right away. But yeah, we're going through it now, and a lot of that's cool and all. But it was neat. We were out there on the ice, obviously, afterwards with the cup, seeing guys lift it up, for a second or third time for photos and stuff. And just the hugs and everybody just, hey, what's up? Everybody was just in a great mood. And to see the Kachuk family out there, Keith and Brady and Mom and the sister and with Matthew, then they all come over and talk, you know, grab the owner and all that stuff. It was fun.
Very, very cool. So the Florida Panthers, they took Sasha Barkov second overall instead of Seth Jones in 2013. They took Aaron Ekblad, which wasn't a lock in 2014. There was kind of 3 or 4 guys that they were teeter-tottering over. They make a huge trade.
Or trade it, right?
Oh, yeah, or trade the pick, exactly. Nothing was set in stone in 2014 when they took Ekblad. They made the blockbuster trade for Matthew Tkachuk. They overpay for Sergei Bobrovsky, claim Forsling on waivers. All these great things that Florida's done in the last decade or so that led them to this moment. Of them all, which one sticks out to you the most as the most important?
Of what you just mentioned, obviously drafting Sasha Barkov in the situation that it was, because there's always a backstory, right? When Colorado had the number 1 pick, Colorado says we're taking Nathan McKinnon. So everybody just assumes that Seth Jones was the number 1 prospect in that draft for a year, is going to slide to number 2. Dale Talon, old school hockey, he's going to take the defenseman, right? The puck moving defenseman, Seth Jones, can't miss. And Seth Jones is great. I love the guy. Covered him in Columbus. We've talked about how he almost came to Florida. But what we didn't know, the Florida Panthers were for sale at the time. They had no money. So they had free agent center, pseudo captain, Stephen Weiss was a free agent. Florida couldn't offer him a contract. They couldn't offer him a penny because the team was for sale and they couldn't add any money. They had to draft Sasha Barkov because they needed a center who could play right away. So unbeknownst to us, Sasha was going to be the pick because they needed a center, an NHL-ready center. And that just, sent, the next year they got the number 1 pick. If they would have had Seth Jones, they wouldn't have taken Aaron Ekblad because they wouldn't have taken a second defenseman. They might have traded it. They might have got some, who knows what. They might have gone with Reinhardt or Bennett, who they ended up with anyway. And, it all worked out pretty well. But, yeah, the moves that have been made over the years, and you look at what Bill Zito has done since he took over the team in 2020. I wrote about it today at Florida Hockey Now. There's only 5 guys left. Of the 27 guys who were on the playoff roster, only 5 guys were there or at least within the organization when Bill Zito took over from Dale Talon. Obviously, the big ones, Bobrovsky, Barkov, Ekblad. Then you've got Eetu Luostarinen and Spencer Knight, who Florida had drafted and was still at Boston College. But he's turned this thing around, and I think it's a case study for how an NHL team can retool on the fly without losing a step. In fact, the Panthers have only gotten better each and every year. That first year, they went to the playoffs, lost in the first round. Second year, they won the President's Trophy, got to the second round. Third year, Stanley Cup final. Fourth year, Stanley Cup champions. So,
yeah, absolutely. Now, is there anything that you saw where you think that was the turning point of why they were able to win Game 7? They were up 3-0. Looks like they were going to sweep. Hard to sweep. You blow Game 4. I understand it was dominant. Go to Game 5, come back home. You think they seal it out. They don't. Connor McDavid turns things around, gets the team going. Depth starts scoring a little bit for the Edmonton Oilers. Go to Game 6, hard to win in Edmonton. Then all of a sudden, Florida's on the brink of elimination. And in Game 7, anything could happen.
Yeah.
Is there anything you saw while you were there that was like, this is why the Florida Panthers were able to win Game 7, where they weren't able to close it out in Games 4, 5, or 6?
I think the biggest thing was they weren't chasing the game. And in 4, 5, and 6, they were down and down big. And in this case, the worst it was tied. It was tied 0-0. It was tied 1-1. So when Sam Reinhart is able to scores that goal to make it 2-1 5 minutes into the second, the Florida Panthers just clamped down. They just and that's what we've seen Florida play. That's the style of hockey they've played over the past year and a half under Paul Maurice. Is that shutdown hockey? Now, maybe not to that extent, because they went into penalty kill mode. If I'm a hockey fan living in Omaha, Nebraska, watching this, I'm going, but Florida, they iced the puck 20 times in the third or whatever. At least it seemed that way. They just were not going to give it. And Edmonton had 3 or 4 prime chances there in the third. Sergei Bobrovsky stood strong when needed to be. But Edmonton didn't have all that great, didn't have the great opportunities that they had. They didn't have the odd man rushes. They had one really, and they scored on it in the first period. But Florida's defense was awesome. It's like what Paul Maurice said. He goes, I just wanted to see how we played in the first. After the first, we're good, and Florida came out ready to play. They didn't come ready to play in game 4. They certainly didn't come out ready 5 or 6 because they were down 3 goals in both of those games, even though they came back in game 5 and had their chances at 4-3. They were chasing that game the whole time.
Absolutely. And George, I understand that the media that was voting on the Conn Smythe Trophy had to have their picks in 10 minutes left in the third. And obviously it's hard. Okay, so that was going to be my question. Do you agree with their decision to name Connor McDavid as the winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy?
You would have been able to change it, I think, if you wanted to. I mean, I think, but everybody knew once it got to 5 or 6 games. I think if the Panthers had won in 5, it would have been Barkov. Once it went to game 6, it was going to be Connor McDavid. I mean, it was going to be Connor McDavid because in games 4 and 5, he had 4 points each. And he had a playoff that was up there with Gretzky and Lemieux. Those numbers haven't been touched in years. And Connor McDavid had a phenomenal postseason. He dragged. These were special circumstances. Okay. Again, if Florida sweeps or wins in 5, he's not getting it. But because he dragged Edmonton back into it, and I didn't have a vote. I didn't vote because I work for NHL.com. I had one last year. But this year, I can't do it. I probably would have voted Connor McDavid too, but I would have had Bobrovsky right there. I know Bob had one first-place vote from Ryan Clark at ESPN. I don't think he had a second, and he might have only had a couple of thirds. Listen, but, when you lose 8-1, he gave up, he was down 5-1 in game 4, got pulled in that game. That certainly didn't help him. But again, if Florida sweeps or wins in 5, it's either Bob or Barkov, one of the two. But once it went to 6, it was Connor's.
Now, to add on to Vinny's question a little bit, you kind of already answered it, but in your opinion, if you were to give it to somebody on Florida, who would it have been after Game 7? After Game 7, Barkov? Yeah, that's what I would. Yeah.
Barkov had just a phenomenon. Let's not forget this. If we're going to take why Connor McDavid won, it was because you're looking at the entirety of the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to look at the entirety of the playoffs when it comes to Bob and Barkov. Mm-hmm. Sergei Bobrovsky was fine the first 3 rounds, but for the most part, Florida's defense and their puck suppression, he didn't have to put the Panthers on his back. The only reason Bob became a Conn Smythe Trophy candidate, betting favorite for sure, was game 1. He shut him out 3-0. In the final, and then Bob's now the guy. Going into the Stanley Cup, it would have been Barkov for Florida. It would have been Barkov after game 7, in my mind. And that's just, that's just how it is. But yeah, Bobrovsky, looking at the grand total, Florida did a phenomenal job in front of him. Now, he made the big saves when they were needed for the most part, but the Panthers didn't win, the first 3 series because Bobrovsky stole it for them. He was fine. He wasn't last year's Bobrovsky in the Eastern Conference Finals, but he was in a couple. He had 2 shutouts in the playoffs. He was great, but not that great.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. McDavid got 16 out of 17 first-place votes for the Conn Smythe Trophy. Bob had 1. Barkov got 15 out of 17 votes for second place. So everybody seems to kind of be in agreement that, it was McDavid, Barkov, little nod to Bobrovsky. But I kind of want to flip it into a different direction. You mentioned his name earlier.
Forsling got a lot of votes.
Forsling did. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 votes for third place in the Conn Smythe Trophy voting.
You look at how good he was throughout the playoffs.
He was fantastic.
Wonderful.
He was fantastic. Yeah, he definitely, Sasha Barkov, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
Barkov used to be considered the most underrated player in the National Hockey League, right? Now it's probably Forsling, and now everybody knows who Forsling is. So even now, that's kind of gone. But
absolutely, I'd love to see if his name pops in the top 10, even a handful of votes when the Norris Trophy voting comes out tomorrow night.
I think he's going to be one of those guys that no. He's a.
I hope so.
Now. He's a.
I hope so. Yeah. That's outstanding that he gets that kind of recognition. I like seeing guys, maybe they didn't succeed in a place. Maybe they didn't succeed in 2 places. 2 teams gave up on Forsling. And one of them, the Hurricanes, they're doing all right on defense. The Blackhawks, I don't know what they were thinking, but I kind of want to flip a little bit. You mentioned E2 Listerainen earlier in the show. He gets hurt in the conference finals last year. He is unavailable for the Stanley Cup final. You see him this time around. He's playing in the final. He's blocking shots. He's a presence. You notice he's there. He's not scoring the big goal. He's not Barkov. He's not McDavid. I get that. But guys like that, they make a difference. Frank, we've seen it when Chicago won how many cups? Guys like Boland 100%. And Bickle just stepping up in big moments. Listerainen gives me that kind of vibe. George, I'm wondering what you see when you watch Listerainen play hockey.
Everybody in Vegas was like, get out of here. The guy's a third line, fourth line guy.
Yep.
Oh, so what? That don't get no. That was a huge loss for Florida because he did so much. He's a key penalty killer. He doesn't score much. He just doesn't. But the guy tracks down every puck on the ice. He'll jump in front of he'll jump on top of a grenade if it's out there on the ice. Lusterainen can play on the left, the right, play center, take faceoffs, penalty kill. You can put him on the power play. He'd be fine. But he knows his role. He's a guy that plays his role extremely well. And that was a huge loss for Florida. When he broke his leg in game 4 of the Eastern Conference Final, they tried to get him out there for game 4. He skated on a broken tibia and just couldn't do it. That's one I don't think you can fake. That's not one like an ankle sprain where once you strap on the skate, you feel better. I don't think a broken tibia is, going to feel very good. But that was a big hole that was missing from Florida last year. And that team wasn't as deep as this one. And when you lost a guy like Lusterainen, it was very noticeable.
Another player who was very noticeable throughout the season and the postseason was Sam Reinhart. He had 57 goals, 37 assists, 94 points in the regular season. Come playoff time, he was just as good. 10 goals, 6 assists in the 24 games that they played, including the most important goal, the second goal to win the Stanley Cup, the game-winning goal. Now, what would you say is next for Sam Reinhart? I know you got a chance to talk to him, interview him a little bit.
Yeah.
What's next for him, do you think? I assume he stays in Florida. Do you agree, or do you think there's other things on the horizon for him?
I think if he doesn't stay in Florida, it's not because of money. Okay, I think maybe it might be a term issue. Yeah, my gut feeling says he stays. Yeah, the Panthers, I think, can work it out financially. I don't think that's the problem. And I don't think that's the problem with Reinhart. I don't think that he's a smart fella. And listen, he was miserable in Buffalo, right? And it wasn't because of Buffalo. I always have to preface that because I love Buffalo, and he has no problems with the city of Buffalo or Western New York. It was that organization. It was a clown show. They lost like crazy. It was a mess. He was miserable playing in that situation. Comes to Florida, different story. And we've seen the results there in these 3 years for Sam Reinhart. He's not a guy that you have to tell the grass ain't always greener, pal. He knows it. He knows it. He knows the grass isn't always greener. So he's not going to take, just for a couple extra bucks to go to San Jose. All right, well, 3 years maybe I don't think he's going to do that. But if they offer him 7, maybe he does. I don't know. And everybody else is offering 4 or 5. That could be the thing. I don't know. But I think there's only a handful of teams that can afford him and fit what he wants. And I think Florida is obviously one of them. So we'll see what happens. They've got until Sunday to extend him. I'm sure, Florida's offseason didn't start yesterday. I mean, they've been working on all this stuff. They've got a gigantic front office. All they've been doing is working on this stuff and then watching hockey games at night. It's not like they've been handcuffed. So, they know what they're jumping into this thing with 2 feet and they're ready to go.
I love Sam Reinhart on Florida. I hope he stays. I loved him in Buffalo. I mean, seeing him with Sasha Barkov at 5-on-5 most of the time, and then just being the absolute power play producer that he has, led the NHL with 27 power play goals this season. You're not going to get that everywhere else. Like, yeah, it'd be fun to go see him. Like if he played in San Jose, like you mentioned, a team that's not great in the standings, but they can offer money in term. Like, yeah, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to put up 50 goals playing on a team like that, I don't think.
And let's not, let's just talk about how much more it's going to cost him to live in the Bay Area than it is South Florida, where he's already got the house. He's married, all that stuff. Now, could he go home to Vancouver or Seattle? I mean, I think he's from West Vancouver. So that could be in play. Certainly. I would think that Seattle would fit. I mean, they're not San Jose. They could be a playoff team. Vancouver, obviously, a great organization, and they've turned things around now with Doc. We'll see what happens. But there's only a handful of places I think that are in this market for. And I threw this out the other night in Chicago. I know that they're kind of in this, but if you think that they're only a year away from challenging in the West, or at least being a playoff team, maybe you jump on that opportunity. I don't know.
100%. And we see it all the time. Guys jump ship to a team a year before they're ready for contention, knowing what they'll be in 2 years. But
right.
You brought up being miserable in Buffalo with their organization. He had a stop in Pittsburgh in between, but Evan Rodriguez, Jack Eichel and Evan Rodriguez win the Stanley Cup in back-to-back years. They were line mates at BU. Frank, we talk about them all the time. But
absolutely,
I loved seeing what he did in the Stanley Cup final. He was all over the place. Talk about a guy who just accepts his role and executes it, to quote the great Ed Olczyk. The Verhaeghe deflection to open the scoring in Game 7 was just an awesome placement of a shot by Evan Rodriguez, but he had 4 goals in the series. Just magnificent stuff from him. What did you see from him, and how big of a signing was that in the offseason?
Okay, so we just talked about the Conn Smythe. If there was just a finals MVP after the Florida Panthers won it, it'd be Evan Rodriguez. Evan Rodriguez would have been Florida's finals MVP if you're just looking at those 7 games, because he was absolutely terrific. He came up big in the first 3 wins, and then he came up big in Game 4, just throwing it at the net, just a sharp turnaround, sling it, and there's Carter Verhaeghe to knock it in. That's all Evan Rodriguez, getting it to Verhaeghe. He absolutely great signing for Florida. Listen, they had to jump through some hoops to do it. Speaking of San Jose, they traded Anthony Duclair to free up the money to be able to sign Rodriguez. They didn't sign him, remember, until July 2nd. He was still out there on the market, but Florida was like, all right, we're working on this. Just hang out, man. We got you. So great signing, because he's a guy, as you know, watching him in Pittsburgh and Buffalo, Colorado as well. He could play anywhere, on any line, left, right, center. He don't care. He's moved around so much. He's like an army brat, right? You make friends. You're able to. You're just used to meeting new people, right? You're used to being the new kid in class, and that's kind of Evan Rodriguez. He fit right in with the Panthers, and now he's got some long-term stability here. But him just being able to, you're going to play with Barkov today. No, you're going with Luosterainen. No, you're going to be 4th line. But then he don't care. Play me, wherever. He fits every role.
Speaking of the offseason, the Florida Panthers, I think, are going to have to tweak some things in regards to their power play a little bit. Very mediocre this postseason. I mean, yeah, you're playing the Edmonton Oilers, who are killing penalties at a historic rate. But all in all, you do got to try and find ways to break that barrier a little bit. And in previous series, they kind of struggled to score as well. And I think that led to a big reason as to why they struggled so much at times. What do you think they need to do to improve their power play next season? Because if they really get that power play cooking, they are really going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, well, there will be changes, because you're not expecting Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Montour to return. Maybe both go, right? Both are free agents. Maybe both go some, so you're going to have a new quarterback. But the talent is obviously there. I mean, listen, the Panthers have that right now. The power play is not the concern, because they've got so many free agents. We don't even know who's going to be here. That's something they'll work through in training camp and all that, and leading up to it. But once they know, they don't even know what the personnel is going to look like, because who knows? Bill Zito might be making trades this weekend in Las Vegas to clear cap space. Florida's only got $20 million, and let's assume that Sam Reinhart takes up at least almost half of it, right? He's at least going to be $9.5 million in Florida. Now, he could get 11 somewhere else for sure, but in Florida, he's going to get 9.5. So let's assume that Sam Reinhart signs. That's half of your, you're 11. You got 11 million left. So Florida's got to make some moves to create some cap space. So we don't even know who's going to be on the team yet. So
for sure. And so the Florida Panthers.
Real quick though, don't forget how good the New York Rangers penalty kill was, and Florida was able to break through that. Florida was able to break through that in Eastern Conference final. But Edmonton, I mean, everybody talked about coming into the final how great Edmonton's power play was, and those numbers were obnoxious, right? 35% obnoxious.
That was crazy,
and that's why Connor McDavid's won the Conn Smythe. I mean, anyway, Florida's penalty kill held that in check, and Florida ended up with one power play goal, and the Verhaeghe goal pretty much came off the power play. So it wasn't great, but it didn't really. The shorthanded goals hurt them, but it was what it was. They won the game. They won them. They're good.
Yeah. They won the Stanley Cup. Every draft pick and every signing and every coaching decision is perfect.
This is the first time I've even thought about the power play since the contract. Nobody talks about it anymore.
No, he could have an 890 save percentage the next 2 seasons. People, I don't care. Put him in the hall.
Homer Reese is lifting the cup.
Yeah, exactly.
The power play. You guys were always.
That's awesome. I love that. So over the years since drafting Barkov, you could probably say that that's probably the true start of what they built today. I mean, there's probably a couple things before then, obviously, that you can look to. But for the most part, you get Barkov. He becomes your captain. Over the years, though, Jaromir Jagr, a couple guys with the last name Stahl, Brian Boyle spent a little bit of time there. Just some of these great leaders that came through the league, found their way to Florida a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
How much did those guys help the players that are there right now become who they are? Do they get a ring? What are we thinking about some of these veterans? Our guy Bobby Lou, we see him hoisting the cup. That was awesome.
He's getting
did I see Sean Thornton on the ice after the game? Like, that was really cool.
Well,
all these guys.
Sean Thornton's an executive with the team on the business side. He's not even on the hockey side of things. He's on the business side.
That's
Roberto
awesome.
Luongo is in the front office. He's getting a ring. Roberto Luongo's getting his name on the cup.
Long time coming for him.
That's awesome.
Boiler was on the ice the Monday night because he was working for NHL Network, so we were hanging out with him. George Peros, who played for the Panthers, people don't remember. He was at the finals, obviously in a work capacity. Jaromir Jagr, I am glad you brought that up because his influence on the Florida Panthers remains to this day because of what he meant to Sasha Barkov. He taught Sasha Barkov how to play that style of game. Sasha Barkov was a kid when Florida traded for him in 2015. Story time.
From the Devils.
Jagr was ticked off at the Devils. They were playing him 8 minutes a game on the fourth line. He made it clear, get me out of here. Dale Talon pulled the trigger. Florida was 6 points out of the playoffs. They weren't making the playoffs, but they had really improved from the year before. Dale Talon brought Jagr in here because he knew they could put him between Barkov Barkov in the center, Jagr, Jonathan Huberdeau, 2 guys that had yet to hit, and they followed Jagr around like a puppy. They really did, especially Barkov. Barkov, everything Jagr was doing in the gym, all that weird stuff we've heard him doing, swimming in the vest and
3 a.m.
and weights on his stick, all that stuff Barkov still does today. The Panthers have custom stuff that they've custom made and rigged because Jagr did it and Barkov does it, and other guys now see Barkov doing it, so they're doing it. So when they see Barkov running around with these giant weights on his legs, all of a sudden you've got, the other guys are doing it because, well, it's Barkov. Okay, we'll do it. That all came from Jaromir Jagr. That's a great bring up. He means a lot to the Florida Panthers. Now, he means so much more to Pittsburgh, and we all get that. But the Panthers, this guy is I've been saying it for years that 68 needs to go in the rafters because he was only here 3 years, not even 2 seasons and change. But what he meant to the Panthers, unbelievable.
He meant a lot. And a lot of players who didn't get to win the cup with this Florida Panthers team meant a lot. The names that Vinny just recently brought up. Another guy that I was happy to see finally get success and win the Stanley Cup was Coach Paul Maurice. He's finally a Stanley Cup champion. after being fired so many times. He holds the record for the most losses by an NHL coach in NHL history with 713. How good did it feel to see Coach Maurice finally win that Stanley Cup?
Well, listen, that whole thing about the most losses in the NHL, as soon as the Panthers went down were 3-2 in that series, here it came, right? On social media. He's the losing coach in the NHL for a reason. He's a loser, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He hears that. He hears that. He knows that's the first attack on him, is that he's got the – you know why Paul Maurice has the most losses in NHL history? Because he's taken on some of the worst jobs in NHL.
That's true.
His first job was the Hartford Whalers with
young too.
Young
too.
Yeah.
37, right?
A foot out the door to Carolina. Then
that.
they get to Carolina. They don't play in Raleigh. They play 90 minutes away in Greensboro. So they suck for 5 years. He gets them to the Stanley Cup Finals, gets fired, takes over a crummy Toronto team, gets fired, goes back to Carolina on the downturn. Then he, who is this? The Atlanta Thrashers moved to Winnipeg. He takes over that dumpster fire, gets them going. His record sucks. He's took over some really, really bad teams, but he made them all win, with the exception of those 2 years in Toronto. Those franchises were much better off when he left than when he started. And for Florida, I talked to Paul Maurice about this the day he took the job. We were talking on the phone. I was like, what's it like to step into this job? They just won the President's Trophy. Yeah, there was something missing, but after all the tire fires that he had previously stepped in, and he coached in the KHL, let's not forget, which has helped actually with his relationships with Florida's Russian players. Another story. And he was like, this is like, wow. He goes, I'm used to coming in and trying to piece together a top two line. And now I've got 5 lines here in Florida that you could just do anything you want with. But to a personal level, he needed that and he knew it. And, he knows what people say, but he's very content with himself because he knows where he's been and he knows why his record looks the way it does. And he said before the final started, winning the cup isn't going to validate me where it's important. And that's with my family and my friends. And he's Paul and he's the hockey guy, Paul to them. And that's not going to validate him. He goes, but boy, I would love to win one. Just win it once. It's been 30 years. Let me win it once. And you saw, the interview on Sportsnet where he thanked his mom and dad and Sault Ste. Marie and, all the other families and, saying, hey, Dad, your name is on this cup. Your Maurice, your name is on this cup.
Very cool.
Come on, man. He was jacked.
And on the other side of things, too, he was the youngest coach to get 1,000 wins and 1,500 wins.
Right. He was 28 years old when he was 28 when Karmanos basically made him take the
right.
For years, Karmanos, he was coaching Karmanos' junior team in Detroit. All right, we really need you to go to Hartford and be an assistant. I don't want to go to – it's terrible in Hartford right now. I don't want to go to Hartford. Finally, they talk him into it, and they fire the head coach 2 weeks into the season, and now he's the head coach. He didn't even want to go be the assistant coach. He didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, it's a great story. I love the Paul Maurice thing, and he was probably a little extra motivated. I know some people in Florida weren't happy when they didn't retain Andrew Brunette. And, that was another thing. Burnett took over for Coach Q, and he did a great job. They won the President's Trophy. They made it to the second round. They lost to Tampa, who's been the standard in the NHL for the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And I don't know. I like the Paul Maurice story. And speaking of Florida, George, the Eastern Conference champion has come from the state of Florida for 5 straight seasons now. And I do often wonder if there is something to do. I know people like to bring up the state taxes and, a guy making 11 in Toronto is different than a guy making or it's about the same as a guy making 9 in Florida. That's a huge advantage to your team. What Mitch Marner's pulling in and what Matthew Tkachuk is pulling in, probably around the same amount of money in terms of gross income. And, I think that's an advantage to the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And, I don't know the other. I'm not privy to every single state, whether they're a tax state or not. I know Illinois is not, and it sucks. But, and then you think of hockey, right? Toronto, Edmonton, You come down to the states, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida. Stanley Cup champion, Florida. 2 teams. It's got to mean a lot to the locals who have been diehards down there for a long time.
It's the state of hockey, buddy.
That's awesome.
See you, Minnesota. Florida's the state of hockey.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Listen, the income tax thing has always been an advantage. That hasn't changed. But what's changed is they figured out how to build teams down here. When Florida's always hasn't, what did that matter in 2006 when this team was just garbage? No.
Mirko Mueller. Who were some of the other ones?
Come on. Listen, there's other, Arizona, I don't believe had a salary, has a state tax. How'd that work out for Arizona? I'm just
here we go, Utah.
Some of my buddies. How did that work out? I mean, yes, okay, but there are disadvantages and advantages everywhere you go, right? Toronto and Montreal have their own set of problems, and it ain't taxes. Okay, a lot of players don't want to go there because if they're -2 in a game, they can't go to the supermarket. That's, you saw Connor McDavid going to buy a 12-pack of beer and get accosted on his way out of the store. That doesn't happen here. That's an advantage. Players don't, they get sick of that. Jonathan Huberdeau. Everybody was like, Jonathan Huberdeau wants to go play for the Canadiens. I go, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Jonathan Huberdeau loves going home to Montreal in the summer and being Jonathan Huberdeau, NHL superstar. Not Jonathan Huberdeau, the guy that was -2 against Arizona on December 15th and got booed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The Montreal people don't care when he plays for the Florida Panthers. They would care if he played for the Canadiens. He never wanted to play for the Canadiens. He just wants to go home in the summer and be Jonathan Huberdeau. A lot of players think that way. I'm telling you. As far as taxes, there's also, in Florida, a lot of these guys can't, are paying 3 times what everybody else is for, insurance. I mean, who's doing commercials on this team other than Matthew Tkachuk? Who's doing commercials in Toronto and Edmonton? They all have deals. It's like NIL in college football. All those guys in Vancouver and Edmonton and Calgary have local commercials, and they're doing different things that nobody down here does. Tkachuk's got the national deals. That's it. So there's advantages and disadvantages depending on the market, and you just got to deal with it. It was never a problem until now, until the Florida team started winning, and then Nevada. Then they're saying it about Las Vegas. Forget the long-term injury stuff. It must be the taxes. Come on.
Yeah,
it's a combination of everything.
Florida hockey, that's really been buzzing, really on the up and up this past decade. And me and Vinny talk a lot on the show how you never want to see your team lose meaningful games. You never want to see them lose the Stanley Cup. And in the interview you had with Sam Reinhart, he said that the loss to Vegas last year really helped them learn a lot. And with that being said, are the Panthers Stanley Cup champions today if they don't get dismantled by the Vegas Golden Knights?
That's a good question. I don't know if it was dismantled was the thing. I think if they would have lost in 6 or even in 7, just seeing that cup on the ice, a lot of guys didn't watch it because they didn't want to see it. But there was a picture of a lot of them watching. And Paul Maurice talked about, he went on vacation, he comes back. Guys are already on the ice. It's been 3 weeks and guys are back on the ice. And he's like, what are they doing? And he's like, they can't wait to get back at it. And I know that's a lot of, that could be a lot of just talk and empty words. But no, this team from day one was playing playoff hockey. They were focused, laser focused on getting back and having an opportunity to win this thing. For the first time ever, the Florida Panthers were within the sight of the Stanley Cup. Now, 96 was a different world. Nobody that plays for this team or works for this team, for the most part, even was around for that when they got swept by Colorado. But, it was real then, right? It was real that the Stanley Cup was 50 yards down there, and you're watching the Vegas guys. They went back to the casino hotel after Game 5 in Vegas and got, and drank and just had fun that night. And that's all they talked about. We're coming back. Matthew Tkachuk leading the charge. Boys, we'll be back. We'll see.
That's awesome. I love seeing it. I'm a little happy for them that they didn't lose 4 straight in every Stanley Cup final that they've ever appeared in. that would have been just an absolute disaster. I think I echo your sentiments on that. George, we can't thank you enough for coming on our show today. I feel like I learned even more about the Florida Panthers. We've had them on our screens for the last 2 months. I actually watch them moderately, frequently in the regular season. I know Frank does too, but we're thrilled to gain your knowledge. I'll be reading Florida Hockey Now. Why don't you promote your stuff a little bit on your way out? What do people have to look forward to? I know Florida fans probably don't really give a crap about the draft. I think if the Devils won the Stanley Cup, I might not even watch the damn draft. But my team's picking 10th overall. The team I cover is picking 2nd and 18th. So here we go. But if what do you got coming up?
Well, first off, in the draft, Florida doesn't have a first or a second. So a lot of people, what are you going to watch? It'll be a lot of people talking about congratulations to the Florida Panthers. Everybody will be waiting to see who doesn't congratulate the Panthers. At Florida Hockey Now, we've got a lot of stuff coming. Big story tomorrow on Sasha Barkov, a story on Sergei Bobrovsky tomorrow, the NHL awards show. Barkov's already won the Selkie, so but some stuff on them. Story on Paul Maurice as well. And we got the parade on Sunday. We're going to talk to Matthew Tkachuk on Thursday. We got a whole bunch of stuff coming. Florida Hockey Now. Check us out. All Panthers all the time.
Very, very good. Florida Hockey Now, one of my favorite Hockey Now sites. I love them all. I'm not going to lie. I'm biased. I contribute to one of them. I'm a big fan.
Sure.
It's great stuff. George, you're wonderful. We can't wait to read what you got going on online. And congratulations on all the success.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon. George Richards of FloridaHockeyNow.com. Frank, period number 2. Woo! What an interview, Frank. I think George might know more about the Florida Panthers more than I know about anything in the world. And I actually think I know quite a bit about my favorite teams and the teams I cover. But, man, that was some good insight on the Florida Panthers, eh?
It was a lot of fun. He knows his knowledge about the Florida Panthers.
What was your favorite part of that interview?
I think just the way he interacted with each of our questions that we asked and gave a detailed response and was in-depth and just thoughtful is the perfect word for it. You could just tell he loves doing what he does just by the responses and the answers he gave us.
100%. I love listening and learning from people that are that intimate with their work and their art. And, we try every day to be exactly the same for our favorite teams. So, Frank, before we get into what we originally wanted to do in the second period, which is talk about the upcoming NHL awards, which exist tomorrow, the Florida Panthers are the 2024 Stanley Cup champions. What was your takeaway from Game 7?
It was a treat. It was a good game. I was so happy for the Florida Panthers. It was good to see Paul Maurice, like we said, win the Stanley Cup for the first time. I was happy for Matthew Tkachuk. I could see it in his father's eyes, and Brady got emotional. And that Tkachuk's name is finally on the Stanley Cup. I was pulling for this team so hard. They deserved it after that upsetting loss last year to the Vegas Golden Knights. It was a great Stanley Cup all around. To go to Game 7 and just be that close in a 2-1 game. You're just biting your nails, just so nervous on the edge of your seat the whole game. It was great. It really was. It was a great ending to the 2024 season.
I told you before the playoffs started, I believed we just concluded the greatest regular season of all time. And that is me unbiasedly saying it because my team stunk. They were 38, 39, and 5, I think the Devils were. Does that make sense math-wise? Does that lead up to 82? 38, 39, and 5? Yeah. Is that 82? Mm-hmm. They were definitely 38, 39, and whatever the remainder was ties or overtime losses. But, they were mediocre all year long. They started 7-3-0. They lost like 6 out of 10 when Heischer and Hughes were both hurt at the same time. Never really gained any traction after that. Watching them was like sticking rusty nails into my eyeballs. But, it was still my favorite team. And the team that we both cover on this show, the Chicago Blackhawks, your favorite team, they stunk. But, they stunk with a purpose. Bedard was fun to watch. Ovechkin got hot in the second half of the season. The goal chase is real, 42 away. Austin Matthews had 69 goals. Sidney Crosby had this like all-time great age 36 season. There were 3 guys who had 130 plus points. McDavid and Kucherov became the 4th and 5th player to ever have 100 assists in a season. The East had a playoff race that was as great and juicy as we've ever seen a playoff race. And it's not like the West was a joke either. The Blues, the Wild, some of those other teams, they were in it till the end. It was a magnificent regular season, and then the playoffs began. And it was just magnificent. McDavid had this all-time great postseason. There were a couple comebacks in a few other different series. They were down 3-2 Edmonton to Vancouver, down 2-1 to the Dallas Stars. Florida was down 2-1 to the New York Rangers, I'm pretty sure, weren't they? And then they came all the way back and won the series. And, the Florida Panthers, for the first time ever, are the Stanley Cup champions. I believe it is in the conversation for the greatest regular season of all time.
I could see
greatest NHL overall season of all time.
I could see it's definitely up there. I could see your argument for it, 100%.
I do think there was one definitive turning point in Game 7. I thought George was going to mention it for sure when you asked him that question. I would have bet money on it. I believe the definitive turning point in Game 7 was when Sergei Bobrovsky and Gustav Forsling stopped the goal from going in when Connor McDavid dragged it around Bobrovsky's pad, and it ended up right in front of Leon Draisaitl, and it didn't go in the net. Once that goal did not happen, I was convinced Florida was going to end up holding on to win the game.
Wasn't that when Florida went down the other way and scored? Or was that a different moment?
What you're thinking of is close, but the game was tied. The goal I'm talking about would have tied it at 2.
Oh, and was that with like 6 minutes to go?
Yeah. At that point, I was like,
I don't know how to get out of the net. Bob was playing like he did in games 1, 2, and 3. That was Conn Smythe Bob we were seeing.
Yeah. But and like I was saying during our interview with George, we did have the Conn Smythe results come out. McDavid was almost unanimously the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Only Ryan Clark of ESPN voted Bobrovsky, McDavid, Barkov in that order. Frank, this is a final. Jim Matheson of Post Media, he voted for 3 Oilers. He didn't even vote for a single Panther to win the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Can't be biased.
Yeah, I think there is some bias there because I think Jim Matheson is an Edmonton guy. I know Mark Spector of Sportsnet. He did McDavid, Barkov, Skinner. Skinner was great. He's got a couple Conn Smythe votes. 3rd place. Second was all Barkov except for Clark had McDavid second because he voted Bob first. Matheson put Hyman second, which he did lead all playoffs in goals. Remarkable stuff. I found it funny. Austin Matthews and Zach Hyman scored the same number of goals this season, regular season and playoffs combined.
That's crazy.
That is very funny to think about. But it is what it is. The Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champions. It has been a remarkable season. I'm so happy for, they did take Barkov second overall instead of Seth Jones. And if that happened and we had our show back then, we both would have came on here and called them morons. Because Seth Jones was in the conversation to go 1 over McKinnon. And Colorado's super happy they got McKinnon. They wouldn't take Barkov over McKinnon. They wouldn't take Jones over McKinnon. But you know what? Florida might not take McKinnon over Barkov. They might believe they have exactly what they needed to win the Stanley Cup in 2024. And I think that's a very fair argument. It turned out to be a pretty good draft class because Seth Jones is a really good player. But, I'm super happy for that. Ekblad, 1st overall pick. He's not a Norris guy, but he's a top 20 defenseman, I think it's fair to say. He is a top 20 defenseman. Any team in the league would want to have him as their number 1 or really high, rated number 2. You get Forsling off of waivers. 2 teams gave up on him. You trade Huberdeau for Tkachuk. You trade Huberdeau and Weegar for Tkachuk. I don't think a lot of people talk about that, but Montour steps into Weegar's role. He wasn't that great in the final, but overall in the regular season, he's one of the best offensive defensemen quarterbacking their top power play unit. You trade for Reinhardt, right? Like that was insane. I can't like that's a big time move. You signed Bobrovsky, $10 million for a goalie. Oh, no goalie ever making double digits has ever won the Stanley Cup. Well, when Bob plays as well as he does, you know, you're going to have a chance to win. And it was just an overall excellent showing for the Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to next year. It really does. It makes me look forward to next year.
Oh, yeah, I'm already so over summer. I hate summer. It's stupid. Can't wait for the draft, and then I'll be itching for preseason. Most NHL teams' preseason schedule is available. I don't know if the Blackhawks release theirs, though.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like that is something that would have eluded me if it did
I would have
elude me
saw
if
it if
it
they
came
did.
out. The Devils is firmly out, and I hate the Devils' preseason schedule. It really pisses me off.
Utah's is out.
Yeah, I think most teams are out.
I don't
But
remember
yeah,
seeing the Hawks, so I'm going to go ahead and say that it's not out. Am I right?
what?
I didn't know if you were looking it up.
I am because you can put you could put most of their preseason schedule together by other teams' releases.
That's true.
You know they're playing September 25th versus the Red Wings at the United Center. We know they're playing the Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena, not Joe Louis Arena, I'm old, at Little Caesars Arena on September 27th. On September 28th, they're hosting the Blues. On October 1st, they're at the XL Energy Center to play the Wild. And October 4th, they're playing the Wild at the United Center. And then, Frank, I think we knew this a long time ago. This was announced during the season last year. On October 5th, they're playing the St. Louis Blues at the Pfizer Forum Arena in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
I do often
wonder
if, this is the NHL trying to gauge their hockey following in Milwaukee, but really it's just going to be people like me traveling to Milwaukee to go see this game. That is like on my radar to go do. We should do that together because I know you're not far from Milwaukee a lot of the time.
Close.
We really, really should. But yeah, you get most of the Blackhawks preseason schedule already. It's pretty much all but confirmed. But yeah, it was May 6th. It was after the season was over, but it was a long time ago now that we found out that the Blackhawks were playing the Blues on October 5th.
I remember the news.
Yeah. So Frank, now that the Stanley Cup final is over, we have to recap what went on in the regular season. We already have learned a couple of different award winners throughout the NHL season so far. Let me pull those up really quick because I know some of them came out already and we know winners of certain things. So we know Rick Tocchet already won the Jack Adams Award for the Coach of the Year. As George mentioned, Sasha Barkov is the winner of the Selke Trophy for the second time in his career. He edges out Austin Matthews and Jordan Stahl. Jacob Slavin, winner of the Lady Byng Trophy, awarded to the most gentlemanly player in the NHL. He just edges out Austin Matthews of Toronto Maple Leafs and Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. Connor Ingram wins the Bill Masterton Trophy for dedication to hockey, perseverance and dedication to hockey. He edges out Oliver Killington and Fred Anderson. Jennings Trophy, obviously that's a regular season award that it was won with your play on the ice. Connor Hellebuck, it's Hellebuck and his backup, probably they share it. Least amount of goals given up. Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars won the General Manager of the Year award. Obviously very fair. You put together a third line of first and second year players and they play like any other team's first line with guys like Wyatt Johnston and Stankoven, and then some of the veterans that they brought in, the Duchesne thing, like just unreal moves by him. The King Clancy Trophy, obviously Anders Lee. The Messier Leadership Award went to Jacob Trouba of the New York Rangers. Obviously, Austin Matthews won the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy for the most goals of the NHL with 69. Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Art Ross Trophy by leading the NHL in scoring. So, Frank, that leaves just a couple of the other big trophies left that will be announced at the NHL Awards at the Sphere tomorrow night. We'll start with the Norris Trophy, Roman Josi, Quentin Hughes, and Cale Makar.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes on this one. Roman Josi, he got robbed of his chance of winning the Norris, and if it wasn't last year, it's not going to be any year for him because the defensemen, they're just getting so much better. He's getting older. I think the honor goes to Quinn Hughes this year. He had 92 points as a defenseman, all while helping turn this Canucks organization back on their feet. Quinn also had the most even strength points, 54 of them, of all defensemen. He was second in power play points with 38. I know we don't care a whole lot about plus minus, but I mean, it's still great. He was a plus 38. He also became the fourth defenseman in NHL history to record 3 straight 60 assist point seasons, joining Ray Bourque, Bobby Orr, and Paul Coffey. It's just a great year overall for him, and I think he's most deserving this year.
I completely agree. I would vote for Quinn Hughes. He would have had my vote. I wouldn't be shocked if Cale Makar gets it. I think there's a chance. Only one trophy out of all these, I believe we could correctly pick 1, 2, 3. And like it's almost a lock. Every other one, 2 could be 3, 3 could be 1. This one, I believe Josi will come in third. And I believe one of Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar will win it, but my vote would be for Quinn Hughes. So I am in agreement with you. The
100%.
trophy I'm referencing that I think picking 1, 2, and 3 is a absolute lock is the Calder Trophy for the league's top rookie. Obviously, Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks, Brock Faber of the Minnesota Wild, and Quinn are both of our Norris Trophy predictions' younger brother, Luke Hughes of the New Jersey Devils. Frank? It's going to be Bedard, Faber, Hughes. 1, 2, 3.
Bedard's my pick, obviously. And listen, there's some great rookies nominated up against Connor Bedard. Brock Faber,
yeah.
Luke Hughes, great, tremendous rookies. But this is going to be the first of many awards given to Connor Bedard. Bedard was almost point per game. He had 61 points in 68 games this year. He led all rookies in goals with 22, all rookies in points with 61, and he was tied with rookie assist lead with 39. He did all of this that I just mentioned while missing 14 games over the course of 6 weeks. Goes to show you what would he have done if he had an extra 14 games up his sleeves, because he would have played all 14 of those if he was healthy. So I think that says it all on what he does and the player that he's becoming.
Yeah, credit to Faber and Hughes. They're defensemen, and they have offensive numbers that rival fellow rookie forwards. Like they were second and third in rookie scoring, and everybody else behind them was directly behind them was pretty much a forward. Talking about Marco Rossi, Connor Zary, other top rookies, Evangelista, guys like that who were in the top 5, top 6. I believe Brock Faber being slightly better defensively for the entire season. Not slightly better, just better defensively for the entire season. And being Minnesota Wild's number 1 guy. Luke Hughes is probably their 3 when Dougie was in. He's probably their 2 when he was out. Brock Faber's Minnesota's number 1. That's probably the tiebreaker because they had the same number of points. So, yeah, we're in agreement. The Vezina Trophy will go to the league's top goaltender, obviously Connor Hellebuyck of the Winnipeg Jets, Sergei Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers, and Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. Who you got for this one?
Listen, Bobrovsky and Thatcher Demko have been great, but this one's all Connor Hellebuyck. He had a save percentage of .921 this season. This stat was just unbelievable. He allowed 2 goals or fewer in 36 of his starts this year. Hellebuyck's goals against, 239. It's not the lowest we've seen out of a Vezina winner or a potential Vezina winner, but that was the lowest we've seen out of him since 2017, his 2017-2018 campaign. He was just lights out. And while these other goalies, they were lights out as well, I'm giving it to Hellebuyck.
Absolutely. Love to hear it. I agree with you. Are we going to agree on every single one of these? Maybe. Connor Hellebuyck is going to be the Vezina Trophy winner. He was the best goalie in the NHL in the regular season. I think if the Vezina Trophy included the postseason, Bob would have passed him.
Yeah.
I think Bob would have probably ended up winning it because they would have weighed the playoffs a little more. Even though Hellebuyck wasn't bad. They lost to Colorado, but it wasn't his fault. Colorado was just better. But Connor Hellebuyck, great year. This will be his second Vezina Trophy if he wins. Yep. So either, and if Bob won it, it would be his third, and if Demko won it, it would be his first. So I'm just happy to see Bob, all deserving. I'm happy to see Bob get a nomination as a Panther Both of his Vezina Trophy wins came as a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's got a couple top 10 finishes over the years, obviously. But I think getting this nomination and winning the Stanley Cup with the numbers that he did, I mean, he sealed his ticket to the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. I would have, I had him in for a long time already.
I agree. I said if he wins the Cup, he's a Hall of Famer in my eyes. He solidified that. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame for sure. Every couple years, the Ted Lindsay Award and the Hart Trophy Award do not go to the same person. I would say 2 out of the 3 years they do go to the same person. This year, I do not believe they will go to the same person. The Ted Lindsay Award goes to the best player in the NHL as voted by his peers. The nominees are Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Nathan MacKinnon, the Nate Dogg of the Colorado Avalanche, and Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who you got for this one?
You know, this is a tough one because I could see all 3 players winning it. Like, they're all deserving. And all the nominees for any of these awards are obviously all deserving of it. However, I'm going to give it to Austin Matthews. A 69-goal season is something I see getting a lot of respect out of Austin Matthews' peers. Matthews accounted for over 20% of all the Maple Leafs goals this season. It was the most goals scored by any player in Toronto Maple Leafs franchise history. Fellow peers love stories like this. Now, if he would have gotten 70 goals, there would have been a lot of headlines galore. There are already a lot of headlines with 69 goals, but nothing like it would have been for 70 goals. But with that being said, I know if I was in the NHL and I was a player in the NHL, I would want to recognize this type of greatness. It's something we haven't seen in over 30 years. So I would give it to Austin Matthews.
I agree. I would vote for Austin Matthews to win the Ted Lindsay Award, as well as the guy who scored the most goals in the league. And it wasn't just the most goals in the league. Like, we had multiple 50-goal guys. Reinhart came close to 60. He had 57 goals. He was the second. Yep. He was the runner-up in the Rocket Richard race, and Austin Matthews still had 14 more goals than him, which is like a month of production for other elite goal scorers in the NHL. Like, how long does it? Jack Hughes 30 to 45 goals a season that he's healthy is like a lock. How long does it take him to score 14? Like a month and a half?
Imagine accounting for over 20% of your team's goals.
Yeah.
1/5.
As just the goal scorer. How many did he assist
over an 82 game season? That, to me, that's just bananas.
That is bananas.
He deserves
I'm with you. And then the Hart Trophy, voted by the National Hockey Writers Association to be the most valuable player to his team in the NHL, Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche, Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. Who you got?
I think this is going to be our first disagreement. Maybe not, but if there was one that we're going to disagree on, I would say it's probably going to be this one. It's just crazy how close this Hart Trophy race was down the stretch the last month of the season. There was a point where I saw a case for each player to win it. There was a point where I said Nikita Kucherov is the least likely of the 3 to win it, and he has no chance of winning it.
Same.
And now
we had Crosby in the conversation.
Right. I mean, it was just so razor thin tight down the stretch. And now I think Nikita Kucherov is the most worthy to win it, simply because he was one of 2 players this year to get 100 assists. We saw this year out of him. Very similar to how McDavid won the Conn Smythe because he broke some of Gretzky's records. Well, Kucherov also added to history by getting that 100-point season. He also had the 44 goals to go along with it. McDavid had a little bit less. You asked me 2 months ago, I'm probably thinking I'm going to say Nathan MacKinnon. He was my pick early to win it near the end of the season. But I just think Kucherov's going to be recognized for his historical 100-assist season and 144-point season.
We argued back and forth all season long. I believed it was the Nate Dogg for most of it. But while believing it was the Nate Dogg for most of it, I believed that Matthews reaching 70 would lock him in to the Hart Trophy, and I believed McDavid getting 100 assists would lock him into the Hart Trophy. And then we can argue for days if each of them did it. Well, McDavid did it and Matthews didn't. But then a day later, Kucherov also did it. He got 100 assists. And the tiebreaker for me is the fact that he had about 12 more goals. And he led the NHL in overall scoring while getting this Gretzky-like number, 100 assists. Nikita Kucherov is my Hart Trophy winner. He would be the guy I vote for.
I like to hear that.
We unanimously agreed with each other on every single pick. That means they're probably all going to be wrong. Congrats to Luke Hughes on winning the Calder Trophy. Let's go Devils. Kucherov was just magnificent this season, and he kind of did it like lightly, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't allowed 144 points.
No.
Like he's just so good that everyone just kind of expects it. Like people say that about McDavid too. I do believe there is McDavid fatigue when it comes to voting for the Hart Trophy. That's not how it should be, though. Mm-hmm. If a guy deserves to win 10 MVPs, then he deserves to win 10 MVPs and be known as the best player ever. Like there's no doubt in my mind that that's the case. I don't care who has won it before. I don't care how many times a guy has won it. If he deserves it, he deserves it. Kucherov deserves it. McDavid would come in second. McKinnon would come in third. Matthews would be fourth, and then I would put Sidney Crosby fifth. I know some people would put Hellebuck fifth. I put Sidney Crosby fifth. But yeah, we mostly got pretty much in agreement. Were there any ones that were already announced that you disagree with or want to like comment on?
I don't disagree with any of the ones announced. I like Rick Tocchet deserves the Jack Adams Award. He took a team that was really struggling to make the postseason only twice in the past 9 years and was one win away from the Western Conference Finals. They had a 3-2 lead over the Edmonton Oilers. But I mean, you look at them, there's really none to be argued, really. I thought it was weird that for the Jennings, it just says Connor Hellebuck, but it should be Connor Hellebuck and Laurent Brossoit because it's a tandem award. But you look at, I know, but it's just weird that they presented it like that because if you look at all the previous Jennings trophies, they say both goalies. All of them say both goalies, or most of them, I should say. I know last year said Allmark and Swayman. So it's like, it is very strange that most of them say it, but this one only said Connor Hellebuck, which is kind of like a slight at Brossoit. Or there must be a reason. Maybe Brossoit didn't qualify and play enough game.
I'm thinking that because Brossoit doesn't have the little marker on Hockey Reference that he won it, and Hellebuck does.
Right. It's very
Brossoit
strange.
played 23 games.
Maybe there's
Hellebuck
like a 25 minimum.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if there's actually a 25 minimum or 30 game minimum. Most backups play 30, 32 games. Hellebuck, he played a Brodeur level season playing 60 games. You know, why would you not play him when he's playing the way that he did throughout the year? He looked fatigued in the playoffs, though, I must say.
It probably makes sense that there's a minimum because if you had a goalie play 70 games and another one play 12, I mean, he's not going to win the Jennings. He's not deserving of winning the Jennings when the other guy won 70 or played 70 games. But yeah, other than that, I really like how all the awards have fallen so far.
Same. Make sure you tune into the NHL awards from the Sphere tomorrow night. Very excited. From Pierre LeBrun. Blackhawks are getting calls on the number 2 pick, but they are telling teams that they are keeping it.
Smart.
Probably the right
move. I like it.
Probably the right move.
100%.
Especially if they draft Zeev Bouillon. All right, Frank, it is time to discuss the 2024 NHL draft when we get going in period number 3. Frank, on Friday night, we are going to see the dramatic effect of the Sphere in Las Vegas. I hear when you go to the Sphere, I haven't been there. I hear that when you go there, you expect a lot and you're still blown away for whatever reason.
I heard the exact same thing, that no matter how much tickets are for an event there, everybody should experience it at least once. When I went to Vegas, it wasn't built yet. So I really want to go back and experience that.
Maybe I'm crazy and I don't live under a rock. I'm on the internet. I have a podcast. I have multiple podcasts on the internet. Half of what I do for a living is on the internet. I'm in the know, if you will. I feel like one day the Sphere just appeared. I didn't hear about it being built. I didn't know anything about it leading up to it. I love the city of Vegas. There's sports teams there now. We're always surrounded by Vegas this, Vegas that, betting, this, that. Got to go to Vegas, the bright lights. The Sphere just appeared one day, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise. I heard nothing about it until one day I saw it on Twitter.
I remember it a few years ago saying they were building it, and it was a long time coming. Obviously, this wasn't built in a year. It took a few years, but it was. I remember the hype around it because it was going to be like one of the first stadiums per se where you're encapsulated with the screen all around you. There's like nothing else like it in the world, and I remember that just being a huge, like just selling point for people to go there. And quite frankly, it sold me because everything I've heard from it so far makes me want to go. And I'm sure you're the same way. And just imagine even seeing a concert there. Like our cousin said he went there for a concert, and what they're able to do because everything's a screen, they could basically make you feel like you're going on a trip. You're going on an adventure. They're taking you out of your seat and encapsulating you in whatever theme they're trying to do. For example, the one I've heard is like you were going on a rocket ship, right? And you were blasting off through space, but the way that the screen and the way it's set up is you're able to do that. You're able the effects and the I don't want to say technotronics, but the effects and stuff like that they have there is able to put you in a different world of your own. It's just, I want to experience that so bad. Kind of like a smaller scale is like when you went in school throughout the years, you'd go to the planetarium and you'd look up and, you know, the whole thing is like a sphere. But this is like that on like times 100. And I want to experience that.
It's probably the number one thing I want to experience in Vegas. I might even put that above a Golden Knights game.
That would be
And
the number one thing I want to go to. When I go back to Vegas, that's the number one thing I want to go do is go see something there. Obviously, you can't do it because it's not big enough, but I'd love to see like a hockey game played there. I mean, I really don't think it's. I mean, you could, I guess. I mean, they played at Arizona State, so I mean, seating's not an issue, but it'd just be really, really weird. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. It'd be really cool. I feel like every big event happens in Vegas now. We've seen the Super Bowl. Now we've seen the draft. Like, and I was gonna say I'd one day maybe see the Olympics there, but that probably will never happen. But it just seems like every major event they want to get there to Vegas, and if it's not at like Allegiant Stadium, they want to have it at the Sphere. Like, it's great. It's a great time for Vegas sports right now. A lot of talk with the MLB in Vegas. So I just love how Vegas has come up to be this sports town.
It's the new it's the new LA, I would say.
It really is. It's the new hot commodity right now. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I'm a big fan. Frank Macklin Celebrini is going to walk into the Sphere believing he's going to be the number one overall pick in the 2024 NHL draft. The BU kid, Chicago Steel, Boston University, San Jose Sharks. How excited should San Jose Sharks fans be?
They should be very excited. Not to pity on their parade, but it's not Bedard. I mean, I'm sure if they had their choice, they would choose Bedard. It's going to be very good, though, Macklin Celebrini. The Sharks have never selected first overall in the NHL draft, but if there was a time to do so, this is not a bad time to do it for Macklin Celebrini. They are 100% guaranteed to take him. There's no one you could even argue that could really go ahead of him. Similar to last year's story with Bedard. It's not like the 1 year with Shane Wright. We're like, all right, Shane Wright might go 1. All right, he wasn't 1, he must go 2. He wasn't 2, must go 3. It just kept falling. Like, that's not one of these years. It's going to be Macklin Celebrini. And we know, we just know how good he is. We know he drives the play up and down the ice at an elite level. He has awareness, unlike any other in the draft. And he has a shot that's just going to adapt well in the NHL. He's just a complete player overall. So no surprise. Sharks fans should be very excited. They have a lot of young youth in their system. And Celebrini is going to add to that tremendously.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see Celebrini play with Will Smith. That's the thing I'm most looking forward to. This draft is not last year's draft. There's not Will Smith and Leonard and
Right.
Perot, and
So they
I
should be
just
thankful they're drafting one.
yes, I don't see it. Like you might rather have. No, I don't know about that. I was gonna say you might rather have Smith and Celebrini than Bedard and whoever the Hawks take at 2, but I don't believe that. I'd rather have Bedard and nobody than Celebrini and Smith, and that's nothing against Celebrini and Smith. That is all compliments for Bedard. But I mean, having Celebrini and Smith is a really nice foundation to build around. And they took Musty last year with the Devils pick too. Some good young talent is over there in San Jose, and it's only going to get better because they're probably not going to be good for a while. Your favorite team, the Chicago Blackhawks, they're picking at number 2 and they're picking at number 18. What do you think they're going to do? What do you want them to do? What's going through your head when you think about the 2nd overall pick and the 18th overall pick?
What I think and what I want them to do, I think what I want them to do, I think they're actually going to do. I think they're going to select Artem Levshunov, the right defenseman out of Michigan State. He is now the odds-on favorite to be selected 2nd overall, according to the odds makers. He is now minus 250 to be drafted 2nd overall. The odds skyrocketed. I don't know if they heard something. I'm so excited about this. I'm glad to see it. Demidov might end up being an extremely talented forward, right? But you have the chance to select what could very possibly end up being the best defenseman in this year's draft. If you're building a core around Connor Bedard, you already have some good defensemen in the organization, but now you have the chance to really solidify your top line pair. Can you go wrong with Ivan Demidov? No, but you need to start building your defense core because just a handful of picks later at 18, you could draft a forward that'll be good with Bedard and Nazar and Oliver Moore when he comes up. You don't need quote unquote Demidov. He'd be great, but you don't need him. You need to get Seth Jones off the top pair unit and find a new top line defensive pair. This would be, in my opinion, it's a wasted opportunity if you don't draft defenseman here. Artem Levshunov is where I would go. Switching gears to the 18th pick a little bit, it's a different story. You go forward with your 2nd pick. And if Michael Hague is there, a man we've talked about a lot of times on this podcast, you gobble him up. I like what I'm hearing about this kid. Projected to be a top 6 center. And with a guy like Hague, he could be a key piece to slot into this team with Connor Bedard. Hague, he's also a very deceptive player, which is something I think the Blackhawks could use to their advantage because they don't really have any type of player of that nature on their team. They also refer to him and his play style as a Jack Eichel, which is ironically someone Hague loved watching growing up. Now, if he's not there, good chance he might not be there, right? And also, I meant to, about Hague, I wanted to mention. He was at the Combine this year, and the Blackhawks met with them, and it seemed to go very well. He expressed how it would be a dream come true to be drafted by a team like the Blackhawks. I love the vibe I'm getting from this kid. So I do think there's a very real possibility of snagging him at number 18. But like I said, if he's not there, I think you can't go wrong with Jet Luchenko. Jet Luchenko, another center out of the OHL. Luchenko, he's got great acceleration, great transition game, second to none. He's only 17 years old, and he already shows signs of elite talent defensively, which is something you like to hear out of your centers. Calling him a future Selke candidate would kind of be taking it a bit too far, I think, at this stage. But seeing those types of skills at 17 and hearing those types of things is something you really want to hear come draft day. And finally, I would say Luchenko is probably one of the best passers in this year's draft, which is something the Hawks can't go wrong with in a rebuild. You start to get guys who can make top-level passes to top-level talent on this team. Honestly, I wouldn't be upset with either route they decide to take. I would choose Hague or Luchenko. I think one will be available come pick number 18. So whoever's available, I would choose the opposite. And if they're both available, probably lean towards Hague.
I'm with you. They're going to take freaking Lev Shunov 2nd overall. I firmly believe that out of Michigan State. I'm not sure he comes to the NHL right away. He very well could go back to Michigan State for another year. He could come to the NHL. I don't think either of those things are out of the question. But at 18. Oh, and I would take Booyam. I stand by that. I can't believe he's not in the conversation. I actually can't believe it. Booyam was on a better team, so it's not that surprising. His numbers are a little bit better. Booyam had 11 goals and 39 assists for 50 points at Denver, and they won the national championship. Levshunov had 9 goals and 26 assists for 35 points in 38 games at Michigan State. He didn't have, some of the elite talent from Denver or at Denver, like Zeev Booyam did. But I do just think there's a chance he's the second best player in the draft. It's just what my eyeballs tell me. Sometimes I make these claims at the draft and I'm right. Like I believed Zegras should have been the 3rd overall pick in 2019. I believed the 4th overall pick. I wanted the Hawks to take Bowen Byram. I believe I'm right. I do. Bowen Byram was amazing leading en route to Colorado winning the Stanley Cup. Kind of a down year this year. Some injuries early, traded to Buffalo from Middlestat, but that was a hockey trade. Buffalo wanted another defenseman. Colorado needed a second line center. They extended him for all that money. So, they valued Bowen Byram high. I believe that's who the Hawks should have taken in 2019. Obviously, there are like 5 guys who ended up better than Kirby Dach, Dylan Cousins. There are multiple guys from that draft that turned out to be better than Dach. And then Zegras 4th. And I believe I was right in that draft, except for one thing. Nobody saw how good Moritz Seider was going to be. I think you can argue he's even better than Byram. So, if there was a redraft, the Hawks might go Mo Seider at 3. But then again, the Rangers wouldn't take Kakko 2nd overall. So the entire thing would be switched if there was a redraft. But, and then I have other draft takes that stink, right? Like, I believed Dylan Cousins would never play center in the NHL. I just didn't see it. I was wrong. He's a great player. Great player. I'm trying to think of another draft bad take I had. It's too early for last year. I thought Kakko would score 40 in the league. I was pissed when the Rangers had the 2nd overall pick. The Devils get used. That's great. But I thought the Rangers were getting just a tick below player. And I was wrong. Kakko stinks. He doesn't stink. I have a different definition of bust. My definition of bust is never plays in the NHL, can't produce even a little bit. You could say bust for 2nd overall, but he's not a bust. He's an NHL player. If the Rangers cut him tomorrow, 7 teams would try to sign him right away for depth. But this year, my hot take is I believe Zeev Booyam is the 2nd best player in the draft. I believe every team that passes on him is going to regret it. Just like Quinn Hughes. I felt that's another thing I nailed. But long before Jack and Luke were even Devils, I wanted the Hawks to land Quinn Hughes. Canucks took him, 1 pick before or 2 picks before? And he turned out to be a star. You can argue he's better than Dahlin, who went 1 overall as a defenseman. And I was big time wrong about Zadina. I was pissed when he didn't go 4th overall. I thought he was better than Brady Tkachuk. I was wrong. But, this time around, that's my hot take. But if I had to pick between Demidov and Levshunov, I would take Levshunov. I will say Michkov terminating his contract with the KHL's St. Petersburg does open my opinion a little more on Demidov. It does. I think that's natural. Demidov and Michkov are good friends, play in the same organization in the KHL. I don't think it's going to be a pain in the arse to get Demidov over, and that was my main concern with drafting him 2nd overall. So I will be less angry if the Blackhawks take him 2nd overall than I would have been 2 weeks ago before we knew this about Michkov. Now, Michkov hasn't signed with the Flyers yet, but he's going to. He didn't terminate his contract with SKA to not play for the Flyers. So that's going to happen. But I will be less mad about it. As far as pick 18, I'm with you. Michael Haig, Michigan. He's committed for next year. That's the pick you got from the Islanders. It was originally 20. They traded with Tampa Bay in the Hagel trade. Now you're up 2 spots. I really like Michael Haig. I've been on him for a couple weeks now. I've written about every single one of these guys now, so I feel close to all of them. I'm trying. There's no prospect listed in the top 25 I haven't written about yet. I wrote about Jet Luchenko, Guelph. It's a nice pick. I hated the picture we used for him in our picture or in our article because we used I sent it to the editor and the article was given a picture of Jet Luchenko, like a close up of his face. He looks like the Joker. But other than that, and he's not an ugly kid. It's just a bad picture. I like Saka Boisvert too, if I'm saying his name right. He played for Muskegon in the United States Hockey League, obviously 68 points in 61 games. He scored 36 goals and 32 assists. Kind of gives me two-way kind of vibes. I like those kinds of players. He's going to play at North Dakota next year. And I have a feeling he's going to be one of their offensive catalysts to a potential run to the tournament. And we'll see if they're able to make it to the Frozen Four. But North Dakota is going to be real good next year, and he's going to be a big part of it. So those are my two crushes for the Blackhawks at 18. As far as other players, besides Bouillon, of course, that I like that the Blackhawks probably won't be able, and we could get into the Devils at 10 here. Obviously, Cole Yzerman, he could go 5. He could go 10. I'm seeing him mocked. Tankathon has him right now at 10, but Tankathon's draft switches every day. I don't really love their mock draft. I just use it because it has every player's team they played for, their height, weight, birthday, goals, assists, points, and what league they played in with what team. That's why I keep going. Yeah, and if they're committed, if they're going to college. That's why. But I don't know. Cole Yzerman, I don't know if he falls to 10, and I don't know. Everybody drafts Iginla 9 to the Flames because it would be cute. But if he's that good, he had 84 points in 64 games as a 17-year-old in the WHL, playing for the Kelowna Rockets, and to have that many goals and that many points, he had 10 more goals than assists. This guy's a sniper. He's a left wing. He's going to come he might not be in the NHL right away. He might play for Kelowna again next year. But the following year, if the Devils got him at 10, which he's not getting past Calgary at 9, but if you put him on Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier's line as a rookie, he could be like a Calder guy, depending on if he goes to the Flames and he's playing with Huberdeau in 2 years. There's no way that he can't come in the league and dominate. But I don't know. I don't see him falling to 10. I don't see him falling to 9. I could see someone trading up. Why wouldn't Ottawa take him at 7? It just makes no sense. This Dickinson the kid's real good. The Hawks probably don't have a chance at him because they're not going to take him second. He won't make it to 18. If Berkeley Catton of the Spokane Chiefs is available to the Devils at 10,
that's who I was going to say.
Don't take him.
That was the guy.
I am going to take a torch and bring it to the Prudential Center and light the freaking place on fire. I'm obviously joking. Please don't come at me, FBI. I'm joking. If he's not, he had 116 points in 68 games played for the Chiefs. Now I understand the WHL; it's an offensive league. Guys go there and just put up hella points. Shane Wright, Kevin Korchinski. These guys come out of the WHL. Connor Bedard played for Regina. He put up video game numbers. But dude, this guy's a dog. And you're telling me in 2 years he could play with Hischier or Hughes, or maybe you could just put him on the third line and have an Olympian on every line, and that would be hilarious too. I'm calling him an Olympian when he's 17 years old or whatever, 18 years old. He's 18. But I can't see a world where he's not the guy at 10th overall if he's available. I'm looking at some of these players and I'm like, why the hell isn't he supposed to go 5th or 6th? Which he very well might. But if he's on the board at 10, you got to take him if you're the Devils.
It's funny. Those are Iginla or Catton. To me, those are the ones you get if they're there. Another thing about Catton, he loves to attack in transition. And that's a great fit for the Devils. I was just going to say, that's another reason why I think the Devils should draft him, because that's exactly what the Devils do. They like to attack in transition, and he could be a third line center on the Devils, or even if they decide to move him to a wing, he could be a top 6 forward in years to come. So I think it'd be a wasted opportunity for them if they don't draft him if he's available.
Absolutely. My prediction is he's not available, but you got to take him at 10 if he is, unless Bouillon is somehow on the board. unless Bulliam is somehow on. I don't care how many defensemen the Devils have. I don't care that they have Luke Hughes and Simone Nemeth and Seamus Casey, who have been 3 of the best defensive prospects in the NHL in the last 5 years. I don't care if Doug Hamilton still has 4 more years on his contract. I don't care if they're signing Brett Pesce on July 1st. Uh-oh. Did I say that out loud? Shit. Little birdie
so?
told me that. Oh, I don't want to say I know so, but like Brett Pesce's really good. He shuts down passing lanes on the rush as well as any defenseman in the NHL, and he contributes offensively here and there. But the defensive, if you put him with Luke Hughes, little birdie told me, as of right now, all signs lead to Pesce signing with the Devils on Monday, which would really tickle my pickle. Would really tickle my pickle if they signed Brett. You get Brett Pesce and Markstrom in the same offseason, and you have a roster that can score 1 billion goals if they're healthy. I'll be feeling real good if this Brett Pesce rumor that found its way into my DMs comes true. It really, really would excite me. Do you have any prospects that we didn't name that maybe don't have a chance at the Devils or the Blackhawks that you really, really like?
I do think Cole Eiserman's going to be drafted sooner than the Devils, and obviously wouldn't be available for the Hawks. I also like Sam Dickinson. I think he's really good, but once again, don't really know if both are going to be available, or if any of them would be available for the Devils or the Blackhawks. Obviously, Zeev, if a team could get Zeev. I like him. I still would take Lifshunov over him, I think, but yeah, just some of the ones that we named, I don't think realistically are going to be Devils or Blackhawks, but I do like them. I think they're going to be great prospects in the NHL. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for Friday night.
Me too. Locked in. I'm not going on our little weekend trip a day early because of this draft. So it better freaking tickle my pickle Devils wise. I have one favorite prospect that I want to mention, and this is more of like a hockey romantic story that I wanted to get into. Obviously, before Game 7, there was a blockbuster trade that went down in the NHL. The Boston Bruins traded Vezina winning goaltender Linus Ullmark to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for a first-round pick and 2 prospects.
Yeah.
I hate the trade for the Bruins. Absolutely can't stand it for the Beast.
It's a great trade for Ottawa.
It's a great... Ottawa might finally be ready to go. They might finally be ready
We say this, and then they're not. And then we
say this. Linus Ullmark was even good in Buffalo on that trash.
It's a great move for Ottawa. It really is.
It is.
Like,
it
you
is.
needed a goaltender for these guys,
Yes.
and you got one. And you knew
Yes.
Ullmark wasn't staying a Bruin. Like, we
No.
knew that for months to come. I mean, it's like...
I will say, that pick, the Bruins gave their first-round pick last in 2024. They traded their 2024 pick last year to Detroit for Tyler Bertuzzi. The Detroit then in turn flipped it to Ottawa in the Alex DeBrincat trade. And now the Ottawa Senators gave it back to the Bruins where it originally started, and it is the 25th overall pick. Bruins got a first-round pick back. I hope they take Lane Hutson's brother, Cole Hutson, so bad, Frank, because first of all, Montreal picks 1 pick later. They probably want to draft Cole Hutson so that they can have the brother. You know, we've seen the Devils have success with it. A lot of teams have had success with having brothers on the same team. More motivated, more fun, a little more loose having your bro around. I think it would be so funny if the Bruins swooped 1 pick above Montreal and took Cole Hutson, and then he got to come to Boston next year to play for BU. He'd play the Bean Pot at TD Garden. I don't know. Is BU playing BC not Bean Pot at TD Garden again next year? But they'll play each other. It's just Boston. Cole Hutson, Lane's brother. Lane's a star. I think he's going to be Montreal's number 1 offensive defenseman. I don't know if a defenseman of his height can be like a true blue number 1, but like he could be their Montour. Like just a guy who's a dog offensively, quarterback, a power play. They're Luke Hughes, but smaller.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Cole Hudson could be that for the Bruins. He's a little small. I don't think he falls into the second round like his brother. Lane would go in the top 10 if 2022 were redrafted. There's no doubt in my mind. Like he might even go ahead of a guy like Korchinski at this point. Like Lane Hudson is a dog, and you know how I feel about
100%.
Korchinski. I think he's great too. That just for romantic purposes and comedy purposes, I hope the Bruins take Cole Hudson 25th overall.
That would be pretty cool. I didn't even realize it was his brother, to be honest with you.
Imagine Boston, Montreal 5 years from now if those two are both sick and they're brothers, the biggest rivals in the NHL. Oh, and he gets to lead into his career with the Bruins by playing for BU. When's the last time the Bruins had like a BU star? I know Matt Grzelcyk, yeah, but like Matt Grzelcyk more for his leadership and defensive defenseman. I'm talking a guy who is electrifying. I want to see that kind of BU player end up a Bruin. I'm all in on it. I that's my one thing that has nothing to do with the Devils or Blackhawks that I hope happens in this draft. I want the Bruins to draft Cole Hudson so bad.
Well,
Montreal fans would flip.
hours.
We are going to find out soon. Do you believe in any trades coming in this 2024 NHL draft?
I hope so. It's the NHL drafts already as fun as it is, but trades make it that much more exciting. I do think that the Blues could potentially trade their number 16th pick. Doug Armstrong made it very clear that he's open to the idea of possibly trading it if the price is right. They have 9 picks this year, so if they do trade their first overall pick, they would trade it to obviously for somebody who would help them immediately. I do think that is a realistic possibility. As far as anything else, I don't know. A player though, I think you should watch in this year's draft. I forgot to mention him. Is Carter Yakimchuk. He's a defenseman who continues to climb the prospect rankings. He's could honestly be one of the best offensive defensemen in this year's draft. He led all WHL defensemen with 30 goals this past season. He had 71 points in 60 games. He leans heavy to his offensive side of things. The only thing that'll hurt him is his skating. He isn't the best skating defenseman, and that's something you could definitely work on and needs to be worked on, especially coming to the NHL. But it's also a big reason on why he's not projected to be like a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick. This kid has a very powerful shot, but he's kind of slow. Big build makes it tough for players to take the puck away off his stick. I think a lot of players are going to pass up on him because of his lack of skating ability, but I wouldn't. I'm like, if you're willing to work with him and work on his improving his skating game a little bit, I think he has the potential of being one of the best draft picks in this year's draft, to be honest with you. But I wanted to touch on him before we got off the draft topic. Back to the trades. Yeah, I hope we see some trades because there was none last year, right? Wasn't it like the first time in a while that there was 0 trades?
Yeah, that actually does sound familiar. I do believe there will be some trades, at least on draft day or starting tonight. I kind of do have a feeling there's a trade tonight or tomorrow, leading into the draft, like a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of see a top 10 pick moving to Winnipeg for Rucker McGroarty. Rucker McGroarty is their top prospect. He was the captain of Team USA that won the gold at the World Junior Championships. And he was on that Michigan team that kind of had a surprise visit, not in your opinion, because you picked them to beat North Dakota. I picked North Dakota. Michigan was better this year than a lot of people thought, and Rucker McGroarty was a big part of it. The Winnipeg Jets, I believe, took him 10th or 11th. It was something along those lines. He's a great player, and I see a team – he's unhappy with their development plan for him. They want to sign him and have him play for the Manitoba Moose next year. He wants to come straight to the NHL. Otherwise, he's going to go back to his senior year at Michigan. And anytime you send a guy back to their senior year for, if it's a 7th round pick, but you want to sign him, but like you're not that crushed if he leaves you, the Jets either want to trade or sign Rucker McGroarty. So going back to his senior year at Michigan would be risky business because right when the college season is over, if he doesn't sign and play a couple games with you, like we've seen with Luke Hughes and Faber and stuff like that, Frank Nazar did it this year, he could become an unrestricted free agent. He could go to any team he wants in August of next summer. You never want to lose a first-round pick that way, Kevin Hayes. So I really think Winnipeg deals him. I do.
Fair.
The Hawks wish they dealt Kevin Hayes the summer before.
I hope we see some trades, VP. It really makes it for that much more exciting.
100%. 100%. All right, Frank, this was an outstanding episode of Hockey Chat. We did not divulge into any other topic in this episode. This was an hour and 40 minutes of us talking about hockey, and that's the way it should be. We will end the show with America's favorite podcast segment of the week. Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Where's my money, bitch? Welcome to Breaking Bets, brought to you by Rabbit Gaming, your premier peer-to-peer marketplace. Check out what they are building over at rabbitgaming.com. Frank, the floor is yours.
We had a good week last week. We went 2 out of 3. We swept the MLB. Our MLB, we're 7-2 on the year, so it's got a lot of MLB picks coming up with the NBA and NHL season at an end. I do have an NHL pick today. I'll save it for last, so I will start off in the MLB.
There are no games, bro.
But
there are no games. I
see.
know where you're going with it, but
we'll start out with our MLB picks, though. Tonight we got the Minnesota Twins and the Arizona Diamondbacks facing off in Game 2. The Diamondbacks took Game 1 yesterday by a score of 5-4. Simone Woods Richardson will be pitching Game 2 of the series for the Twins against Ryan Nelson. I think the line is as close as it is because the inexperience of Wood Richardson in the MLB. However, from the starts we've seen out of him, he has been holding his own. Twins are a team that has not been struggling to score any runs. I don't think Ryan Nelson will be able to hold this Twins team down for a second consecutive game. The Twins lineup should be able to rebound big in this game, so I'm going to go with the Twins money line at -120, bet to win 3 units. Second pick, we got the Los Angeles Dodgers playing VP's Chicago White Sox. Eric Fetty's on the mound. Fetty has been one of the bright spots of the Chicago White Sox this season. Pitched very well this season. Clearly been the White Sox second best pitcher behind Crochet this year. Fetty gets his fair share of strikeouts, but against the Dodgers, it's going to be tough. I'm going to take Eric Fetty under 4.5 strikeouts at +105 for 2 units. This Dodgers team held Crochet to only 6 strikeouts in Game 1. A strikeout machine. They only held them to 6. The lineup just here for the LA is just super deep. This team also ranks 12th in team strikeouts. Fetty isn't as good as a strikeout pitcher, obviously, as Crochet, which leads me to believe that the line of 4.5 just seems a bit too high for me, just by a hair. So we're going to take Fetty under 4.5 strikeouts, +105 for 2 units. And yes, there is no hockey. But there's the NHL draft, and I wanted to give a draft betting pick for the fans. This could be the farewell for the NHL season now, because after this, I really don't think there will be any other NHL picks till the end of the year, come October. I like Berkeley Catton to be drafted under 11.5 overall. I really think he'll go 11th or better in this year's draft. It's at the line on it's -115. Bet to win 2 units on that. Should go around 11 or even top 10 pick. I think he is too good of a talent to let slip outside of the top 10. If he does slip outside of the top 10, top 11, teams are making a big mistake. I think his performance in the WHL of 116 points is going to be on a lot of teams' radars, and he just possesses so much talent that he just can't be passed up on. If he slips to 12 or later, like you always say, VP, I would run to the podium. But I just don't see that happening with the guy of Catton's, whatever you ever say, Catton's nature. Under 11.5 pick overall. -115 bet to win 2 units.
I love that pick. I hope the Devils take him at 10. If they don't, and he's there around like 12, let me look and see where are the Blackhawks on second round picks. Let me see. Cap. We only have like a week left of using cap friendly. Very sad.
Yeah.
Before it goes away, I should probably start learning how to use Puckpedia, to be honest with you. The Chicago Blackhawks have 2 second-round picks this year, 2 next year, 3 the year after. They also have 2 first or third-round picks this year. If Catton's on the board at 12, what's that?
I said they're set up good with their draft pick.
They are. I would make a trade if Catton is there at like 12, 13. Trade 18 in these 2 second-round picks, or a second and a third, a second this year, a second next year, and a third this year. Like, why not try to go get him?
He won't be there.
I don't think so.
Because that'll be stupid by the Devils if they passed up on him.
Oh, I agree.
So there's no way they make that mistake. So he'll be gone. Which is why
I've mostly.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you.
That's why I think there's so much value here being drafted 11th or better, because like teams would be stupid not to. I love the value here.
I'm with you. I've mostly enjoyed Tom Fitzgerald's drafting. I think he's mostly done a good job with his draft picks. Nemitz is a home run, and I hated it at the time. Oh, that's another bad take. When they didn't take Wright when Slavkovsky went first overall, I was pissed. But I would rather have Logan Cooley and Nemitz over Wright. So, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. We'll see how it goes. I'm very, very excited for the 2022 NHL draft. It's going to be unreal theater.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sure
a lot of fun,
Frank.
GP.
Sure is. And I promise I'll learn how to use Puckpedia so I can keep the good information coming, because Cap Friendly is just so great.
I like Cap Friendly.
This is incredible. This is incredible. But Joey pointed out to me, our old co-host, I was obsessed with General Fanager, and it was bought by Vegas, and it disappeared the same way, and I fell in love with Cap Friendly. So, there will be something else that tickles my pickle in terms of this. I can't wait to see what the Devils do. By our next show, Frank, the Devils could have Berkeley Catton, Brett Pesce, and Markstrom in the organization. And
that's crazy.
Who knows what else they do? Like, maybe they take a run. They took a run at Toffoli last year. There's a hole in the top 6 for like a goal scoring winger. And even if they draft Catton, he's not the guy for that role next year. So do they offer Sam Reinhart $6 million? Like, would he want to come play with Jack Hughes? Like, would one of these other guys look at Hughes? Like, no matter what, you're playing with either Hughes or Heischer, depending on how training camp goes. Like, I'd sign up for that. I really would. You could live in New York. You could live in Toms River, New Jersey, where all the rich people live, and go to New York whenever you want. Like, there's a lot of things that could attract people. I'm excited for it. And Steven Stamkos might have a new team by the next time we chat.
We'll see. I think he stays with Tampa, but yeah, it's possible.
I think Stamkos has 2 options, Tampa or Chicago.
That's crazy. I'd love it.
Yeah, I think those are the 2 options for him.
That'd be great.
And if I were the Bruins, I would offer every first-round pick I'm allowed to trade for Crosby. And then sign Draisaitl next offseason. If I were the Bruins, I'd be going all in on centers. Pasternak and McAvoy not getting any younger. You have all that extra cap space now.
They got to make a move.
They got to make a move. Frank, that was a wonderful show. I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope everybody does tune in to the 2024 NHL Draft from the Sphere in Las Vegas on Friday night. Make sure you're following Florida Hockey Now and getting at George Richards' Florida Panthers content from Florida Hockey Now. I'm doing the Chicago Blackhawks at Chicago Hockey Now. I'm very excited about this new opportunity, and you could read the rest of my stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Vinny Parisi. Frankie's covering video games at apptrigger.com. I saw a little Fortnite action go up yesterday. Very pumped about that. I love Fortnite. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I know we got a little bit of fun coming up. Once I'm done covering the draft, I'm going to get a good night's sleep and be ready for that. I'm so excited to hang this weekend, and I hope everybody enjoys what should be a very nice, relaxing weekend in between the draft and then free agency Monday. A lot of things could look different around the NHL by the time we reconvene 1 week from today, and I am so excited. I can already envision that sheet. The first period talking about big trades or all the big draft picks. Second period talking about all the big trades that went down. Third period talking about all the big free agent signings that were made. Frank, before we leave, I give you the opportunity to either say whatever you want or give a big prediction on what will happen over the next handful of days.
I think at the NHL draft this year, there's going to be a blockbuster trade. Blockbuster. Your definition could be different of my definition of blockbuster, but I think blockbuster.
My definition of a blockbuster is a star player being traded for a star player and other things surrounding it. So Florida and Calgary made a blockbuster trade 2 years ago when Matthew Tkachuk went for Uyghur and Huberdeau, 200-point guys being traded. That's big. 200.
I hope so. Maybe it's just because I'm hoping.
Yeah, very good, very good. My prediction is one of Stamkos, Reinhart, Gensel, or Marchessault or Tarasenko, all stars. I believe one of them play for Chicago by our next show. Yeah.
Wow.
Bedard's getting a good line mate next year.
I hope you're right, VP. I really do.
I really believe that. You can live in one of the best cities in the world. Go to Chicago Cut once a week if you feel like it because you're rich, and play with Bedard on the ice at the United Center where things are only getting better. Yeah, I believe big things are coming for that team, and it starts this week. They're not going to be great next year, but they're not going to be bad. Yeah. We'll see where direction they go. Marchessault would be awesome. Play on either side. The Blackhawks make a big signing. That's my prediction for before our next show.
Hell yeah. Good shit.
Hell yeah. Blackhawks Devils Stanley Cup Final 2026. I can't thank everybody enough for watching. If you're just tuning in now, make sure you catch the rest of the episode on YouTube, or you could go back and listen to it on Spotify or Apple. We're all over the place. You could get us anywhere at The King Bean, at Vinny Parisi. And as always, Frank, thank you for listening.